Hello everybody and welcome to the first video of my Matlab series that I announced in the last videos, and here you can see what this video is going to be about. I want to create this landscape and render it with my self-written Voxel Surf script that easily renders 3D landscapes that are just created by 3D matrices. And I want to do this step by step and show you how you can easily produce this kind of landscape in about 100 lines of code. So I've written a script on the left here that does the previous bit of rendering, and I'm gonna use this from time to time as a reference. I think I already accidentally typed something in here. In order to create a new one, I'm going to try out these live scripts now, and I haven't worked with them yet, so I hope that I can do this easily. Also some live coding, let's see if that works out, and if not, I'm gonna cut it together, and let's begin right away. So we need to think of what we want first. I want to create or let's put it this way. I've got a method called Voxel Surf. I hope you can read this, and it takes in a three-dimensional array called data, and then just an argument that says whether you draw internal faces. So in this case I'm going to do false. Obviously this is not going to run yet because we need a data array, but for example, let's try to draw a sphere. I am going to show you how. So we need to define the amount of voxels, and first of all create a one-dimensional array. Let me show you what I'm doing here. So let's do it like this. Let's say we do 32 voxels. I think that's going to be enough resolution, and that is in each direction. So our total array is going to be 32 by 32 by 32 voxels. Now we can use mesh grid to create three-dimensional arrays that contain the x, y, and z coordinates of all these voxels. And a sphere just means that the sum of the squares is smaller than a certain number. So because I initialized d to be centered at the origin, so that it goes from -1 to +1, not from 0 to 1. So what I can simply do is say a sphere is the sum of the squares of each of those entries, and well, if that sum is smaller than 1. So and in that case we are going to get a Boolean array, because that's an expression that is either false or true, but I want to have it double because the way my Voxel Surf script works is it takes a data array that has integer indices, and when they are all real values, then the integer index corresponds to the entry in a color map you can choose afterwards. And if it's a complex number, then the integer, the real part corresponds to the color map, and the imaginary part corresponds to the alpha map. So you can actually render a partially transparent scenes. As you maybe can see from here, you can see that the water is actually partially transparent and see-through. It actually has also more features, but if you can see that you can render both at the same time, and that is very easily been doable by just having complex numbers. Now let's try this out. I think you can just run this piece of code. Let's see what it does. Undefined function data. Well, I should not use data, but the sphere here. And there we go. So can I actually interfere with this? Let's see. Cool. So we didn't specify a color map yet, and I think the default one is Parula map, and that's the first color entry. That's why it has this cyan color here. But you can see we have an array with a side length of 32, and we just got a sphere inside. And update code. Now we could just save this particular view here, which is nice, but we don't want to create a sphere now, but I'm gonna leave this like this. Let's define some parameters. So I'm gonna do this a bit quicker than usual by just copying over the parameters I've got from the previous one. How do I switch back to code? Huh? Apparently not like this. No, this is text code. Ah, there we go. So let's just a quick recap. I'm going to create a landscape out of a random height map that is smoothened by a Gaussian filter. So what I'm just doing is I'm creating complete random noise, which I'm going to smooth using a Gaussian filter, and that is our baseline for the for the height map. Then we want to have some trees and a bit of water, and the simplest model I came up with, well, was to just design the trees by using a cylinder as a trunk and a sphere on top. It actually looks quite decent, as you can see from here, but we can modify this, of course, during our bit of coding. This is only part of the map, that's why it looks so cropped, but I mean, from the distance they look quite natural, and well, I wanted to just show you how it's done, not how you make fancy trees. Okay. So these are our dimensions of the trees in pixels, and you can see that the height is a bit larger than the width because I want to have some trunk size, and the grass height is the amount of pixels that is, you can see at the side here, actually it's voxels, not pixels, I'm sorry. This is 5 meters of grass, and below that there we have stone. Now, the water level is just the height at which water is being generated. Mean terrain height is, I think, self-explanatory, and the other parameters just amplify how the landscape is going to work in the ends. So, and let's get started. I'm going to try to not directly copy everything from my previous attempt here, so that you actually learn something and also see me failing, because I'm not going to write it down on the first try without any bugs. And let's see how long that takes. So we need to define the dimensions of our landscape first. So let's say XX. I'm always using too large X. That's easiest. I think the previous size was actually, well, let's make it a bit larger, 256. And maybe a bit less high. Now our voxels array is going to be a empty array at first, zeros from y, x, x, and z. Keep in mind, Matlab always has y, x, z when referencing the indices of arrays or matrices, but x, y, z when you are entering anything into methods. For example, with the mesh grid method I had previously, it is x, y, z, but accessing array indices is y, x, z. If you have memorized this by heart, at some point it's going to be easy, but at first it's so confusing, and it's going to you're going to make tons of mistakes if you're just starting out with Matlab. Anyways, now what do we want to do with our array? Well, we need a height map. So height map equals let's rand is let's rand n. So this is just going to create some random noise. Actually, I think having it bounded is probably easier. So rand n creates normal distributed Gaussian noise. Rand is going to give us a bit bounded one, since it's between 0 and 1. Now, well, we need to modify this a bit. So first of all, we need to smoothen it out. There are lots of already built-in Matlab filters, so you don't need to well, code everything on your own. In this case, image Gauss filter is going to probably do what we want, and we will try this out, of course. So height map, let's say 10 is the width, and then we're going to try out surf height map. Let's see if that works. Well, it doesn't look like I was very successful with this attempt. Maybe not. Okay. Yeah, I fell into the same trap. Of course, we are starting with X and Y, and then Z at the end. 0 to 1. And this should... well, it is confusing that the height map... yeah. As I mentioned, I'm going to make tons of mistakes. A surprise is that this didn't do anything. Of course, you have to actually assign the same value again. Now, well, this looks more like it. If you want to edge color, oops, no, edge color, none, I think. Yeah, so now we got our random landscape here. It's actually pretty simple, but yeah, you're still going to make tons of mistakes. So let me make this a bit bigger. Ah, there we go. So I think we can fine-tune this a little bit. Maybe use a height map that is a smoothing filter that is not so big. 5. Well, this looks again a bit too noisy, so let's do it differently instead. We're going to use 10. Also, I'm going to fix RNG. I don't know, 10 to fix the seed so it looks the same every time, and then we're just gonna multiply this here by some value. Let's say 3 times, and apparently this did not work out too well. Yeah, we have to enhance the contrast, so we have to leave it as it is, and then do something like height map equals don't know, let's say amplifier equals 3, and then we amplify our terrain. That means that the deviation from the mean is going to be amplified, so it's height map minus mean of height map. There's a nice trick too. Mean usually gives you the mean in one dimension. If it's a multi-dimensional variable, for example a matrix, like in our case, that doesn't give you a single value but still a vector of values. But if you vectorize the entry first by using these columns here, you're going to get a single value in the end, and that's what we want. And as you might know or don't or might not know, if you have a single value or a scalar plus a matrix or vector of an arbitrary size, it's automatically going to scale up. So this means that this expression here actually subtracts the mean value of our height map from every height map value. And now this is going to be amplified, so amplifier times this, and then of course we need to add the mean value again. So let's see. Okay, and now let's try out having the amplifier at something like 10. And indeed, it's going to get amplified. Now it still looks a bit noisy, so let's try this. Yeah, there's previously a problem with the smoothing of the values, because they are getting less smoothed at the borders because there's simply no other values. So what we could do is use some maybe using some padding. Padding equals 20, and then we're going to create a height map with some padding. Then actually I think we can tie this to our smoothing value. So this makes more sense. Then we just need to eventually crop our height map at the end. So height, oops, height map equals map of, and now we can use the advantage that we can easily access our entries with this terminology in Matlab. So padding, don't forget to add 1 because Matlab starts counting at 1, and minus padding. So this should give us a height map that doesn't have these ugly edges. Let's see. Oops, what did I just do? Oh, I think I just made the text larger. Ah, no. Now I think this is a landscape that is good enough for our purposes. So let's get on with the next. Okay, so in the next part we need to actually modify our voxels. So far we have just created a height map, which is a two-dimensional object, a matrix that just contains the height of the landscape at every column, but we need to actually define the voxels as earth or air voxels. So in order to do this, we're going to add a code section. Again, now we need to to access certain voxels. So voxels, and now we have the advantage that we already defined plenty of parameters. So we have our z value that is that gives us the z coordinate, and if we just say that the z coordinate in our case it goes from 0 to 128 is smaller than our height map. The problem is that our height map is first of all going from 0 to 1, so we need to multiply this by our z mapping. Also, yeah, I think this is already good enough. But the problem is that the height map is two-dimensional, and the z's this is a three-dimensional matrix and this is two-dimensional, so we need to actually wrap mat this whole thing. 1 1 1 that's it. So what this should give us is a three-dimensional matrix that contains the height map values in every column, and if the actual height map value is smaller than our current z value, then this is going to be true. Now we need to assign some value to this. So let's say 1 is earth. Yeah. Now this is obviously not finished yet, so let's continue here. We need to define our grass. I'm going to just copy this line, and if z is smaller than height, how did I write this grass height? This should give us a different value. Now that I think about it, I should probably, let's say stone is 1 and grass is 2, then it should be the opposite, because we fill everything below our height value with grass, and afterwards we just overwrite the values again with stone. This is the easiest. Now we just need to also fill in our water, and then we can already try out if we have a landscape that looks somewhat like a like a hilly mountainous area with some grass and some water. Okay, so let's do it this way. We need to assign a value to water and make the water transparent later on. So let's say voxels of if the z coordinate is smaller than our water level, equals, let's say, and also the z coordinate has to be air. So if voxels, let's put it this way. So this means that if there is a current air voxel that is below the water level, then we're filling it with water. And then we just need to draw this all. Voxel Surf. Voxels. Don't draw the internal faces. There's a problem here though, because we don't have a color map yet, and we also don't have an alpha map. So far we need to define a color map first. We actually do need colors first of all. I'm going to copy them out of my previous code. Grass, stone, leaves. Oh, let's just take these ones. Shouldn't be too difficult to define them, but so these are just RGB colors. The first one is the how much green, how much red, how much green, how much blue. I guess everyone knows RGB. And now we need to initialize our color map. So color map. So far we don't have that many colors, so we just said that 2 is grass, so stone color, grass color, water color. I think there's going to be some bug in this, but let's see what it does. Undefined function or variable e. Oh. Array dimensions must match for binary operation. So apparently this is not the same dimension for some weird reason. Okay. Let's see what the size of this is. $256. Well, this does look like it would be the same size. I am not sure. Did I redefine Z at some point? Or is this... Oh. Yeah. We didn't actually create our mesh grid yet, so this is just the mesh grid of our sphere. I am sorry. Let's add this real quick. So we need to redefine x, y, and z using our mesh grid function that takes in so maybe this works better. It's calculating. That's already a good sign. Dum 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 dum. This is taking a bit long. Oh, because I forgot to output to suppress the output, and my computer is still calculating. I hope this is going to work. Oh dear, no, don't. Can you cancel this somehow? I want to not show the values of x, y, and z. I want to calculate this everything. This is always a bit troublesome with Matlab. If you there we go. It worked. Okay, let's make this a bit actually. Don't want to zoom in yet. We want to take a look at it. So for some reason this looks a bit weird because it seems to be transparent. Open in figure window. Yes, so we can make this a bit larger. Let's see, is this okay? Actually it is it even transparent? I think it's fine. So the water is solid at the moment. You can see that the watercolor is just not transparent yet, but we didn't add this yet. The other landscape looks good, and also we should limit our axis because I don't need the negative airspace below here. And yeah, well, to do that we can use our axis command again. 1. Actually, I think 0 x plus 1 would be better. 0 plus 1, 0 z plus 1. Now it needs to recalculate everything. Why is my upper figure so ugly all of a sudden? Anyways, looks like this worked. Yeah. Okay. Again, open in figure window, so to make this a bit larger for you guys. Okay, so we are going to add some trees now and also make the water transparent. Alright, so it took me a moment to figure this out, so I decided I would just cut the recording and show you what I got in the end. These are our 3 attempts. So, at first, we are creating a random x and a y position, and we have to make sure that the tree is not getting placed at the border of the map. That's why the value of x is always between half of the tree width and, well, maximum minus half of the tree width. In this case times, yeah, so that's the total expression. The same is for y. And our z coordinate of the tree is the root, so to speak, and it's always going to be at the height map because, well, we don't want the tree right in the ground or in the air. Our tree height is slightly variable, so our minimum size, let's say, is 0.7. So if you just say we'll apply rand minus times 1 minus minimum size plus the minimum size, so it's between 0.7 and 1 times the tree height and round because we need pixels or voxels. Now our tree is going to be initialized with an empty array of this size. Then we need to define our coordinate system within the tree in order to make a sphere, or it's actually not a sphere in this case, I modified it slightly, you'll see it in a moment, and a cylinder for the trunk. So our xy space is going from -1 to +1, and our z space from -2 to 1. So that the origin is shifted upwards, so that the canopy is not right in the middle of the it's not a cube, but you know, how do you call this, a quader? I don't know what the English term for this is, so that the leaves are not just in the middle but on top of the trunk. Now we define our 3 coordinate matrices, and then we actually fill in the 3 voxels. So in our first step, we going to set the 4 is our index for the leaves for the time being, and we're going to set the leaf voxels. So in this case, I didn't take this second power, but the 4th power. In this case, so the result of this, let's take a look here. Actually, I think, yeah, we got it over here, is that the trees don't look spherical, but like a bit cubical. And I don't know, I like this. It's just an experiment, but for now it's I wanted to try something different. Also, you can see that there are some slight height variations. It's not that much, but I think making this too fancy would like make this video way too long. And now we fill in the trunk that is size or index 5, and in order to place the tree we have to first test if it's on land, so that we don't get plenty of trees in the water. Actually, I could probably close some of these figures here so that it gets less crowded here. And a second test needs to make sure that there's no other tree, because what I had in the first, it was like half cut off trees. It's like, oh, what's going on here? Of course, well, one tree was placed within the other, and there was no check for this. So and a simple check is, first of all, the water level is easy. You just simply test whether the z coordinate that has been calculated as the position of the height map is above the water level, and -1 makes sure that it's actually really above the level and not just right at the water. The next test here is as follows. I just test the voxels I would like to place the tree in by I save them with a second variable. I call that v, and if the sum over all these voxels is 0, that well, no, it's actually not the sum is 0, but the sum of the voxels larger than 3 is 0. That means that there is no leaf, because that is index 4, and there is no trunk, because that's index 5. So if there's only dirt or grass and stone, then we can place the tree, and of course air. Grass, stone and air, so that we don't place a tree within another tree. Yeah, and placing the tree just simply means replacing these voxels, and by taking the maximum here, I'm not cutting out grass, because previously I had the problem that if you place a tree in a hillside where it's slanted, well, since it's actually a cube that is being placed and there's no grass around the tree, we are cutting off some of the grass, and it looked a bit awkward. So in order to just replace the air and the trunks, and not replace the oh god, hold on, in order to replace the air with trunks and leaves, but not replace grass with air, I took this maximum statement here. And yeah, well, the result is working. I think we can finally add in our last step, and that is making our water transparent. Let's make the water transparent, and in order to do this, I said that the complex part of the number gives you our alpha map. So if we say that the voxels equals the real part stays the same, plus larger than 0 times I, means that all values that are solid get the first alpha value, and then I just say that all water voxels, so voxels, well, now we have to say voxels equals 3, because that is water. The water times 1i gets the second alpha value. Then we need to do Voxel Surf again. Voxels false. And now we need to specify the alpha map. And we just say that the first entry is solid, so that is 1. And the second, let's say 0.5, should make the water halfway transparent. Then I'm going to copy this statement here. And this one as well, because we also need the colors. Let's see if this works. Yeah. Calculating. Ding, ding, ding. Oh, actually, it's probably going to place more trees this time, because I didn't. Yeah, we now have the sum of both trees. And here we got our second figure, which is empty. So this did not work out as intended. Now I don't know where you can actually see the values of these. What is this? Show outputs inline? No. So as I said, I'm not too much used to these live scripts. I would like to know the values of voxels, because it is hard to see them. Well, let me think about it for a second. Hey guys, and this is a bit later, and I finally figured out the problem, and in this case it's the live script editor is actually, well, a bit buggy, it seems. And the problem was that it didn't actually update the alpha map, so for some reason it always took the default one, and it ranges from 0 to 64, so that an entry with index 1 and 2 was just barely visible at all, and that's why you couldn't see anything. So I just made a workaround by just giving the voxels the proper indices to work with this default alpha map. That is 64 for everything that is supposed to be solid, and just assign half of the value, so 32 for the water voxels. And this works, so you can actually see it down here. And we have to, in this case, draw it with the internal faces on. I'm going to show you in a moment what it actually means, and then actually update the color map again. So let me show you in a larger figure how you can see what internal phases means. So there are obviously phases between different material types. So I'm going to zoom in a little bit here. Let's try to make this as large as possible, maybe like this. So you can see that there is a surface, let's for example take this one, between the stone and the grass. It's an internal surface because both are solids, and I decided, since this is supposed to be a tool for visualizing volumetric data, that it still makes sense to draw a surface there if you want to. And well, what color should it be? Should it be gray or green if there's like a stone grass border? And since it's not easy to decide, well, whether when I'm looking from the stone onto the grass it should be green and opposite, and also you might want to know what volume you are in if you're visualizing, like, I don't know, complicated, complex nuclear volumes or so on. So instead I'm just well, drawing both colors, as you can see, with these triangles. And the same goes, for example, for the trunk and the leaves, as you can see in the top right here. So we have brown and green, and pan over a little bit. So as you can see, now there is one downside to this approach, and that is the water looks a bit odd if you zoom in, because well, it draws the surface border between water and grass in this case. So since the water is in fact transparent, you will get a half transparent border, but it's just because of the way I coded the script. And well, it is possible to overlay these scripts to avoid this by just actually separately drawing the water in a separate layer and then drawing the solids in a different layer. I'm going to include a script in the video description where you can see the download with the difference. So here you can see it's well, half triangles that are green and half just bluish, half transparent triangles, which obviously mean that you can look through the wall. But it is actually meant for analyzing data, not for just making fancy Minecraft worlds. But I thought it would be a nice demonstration of what it is capable of. Let me just show you. So this would be an approach where you cannot see through the walls. It is, as I said, in this case I'm actually using two Voxel Surf commands, and there's just the hold command in Matlab, and one draws the water and the other one draws the solids. It's actually even simpler than the first approach, but the other one makes it possible to draw any number of transparency layers at once, which is somewhat handy in maybe. So I hope this video didn't get too long, and also let me know if you like the camera or if it's just annoying and unnecessary, because I thought it might just get too dry otherwise. And I have about let me give you a sneak peek, this many other Matlab projects, and at least half of them are worth showing to you. So yeah, stay tuned for more Matlab videos. I hope you enjoyed it. Give me a like if you did. I know, yada yada yada. And see you next time. Have a good day. Goodbye.